Hello and welcome to Psychology in the Wild, the podcast where we try to make sense of and get through the wild chaos of everyday life. I'm Dr. Gemma Lee Roberts.
And I'm Erin Shrubton.
Erin, what's wild this week?
Gemma, we have completed a full series of this podcast. I think that's worth noting.
I think that's pretty wild. It's It has been quite the journey, and
you can say that again.
There have been ups and downs. I mean, how many tech issues have we faced? We've actually just faced a tech issue just now, and we're talking about the fact we're getting through all these tech issues. But it's crazy what we've had to, like, the problems we've had to learn to solve, and obviously with the help of Leon as well, who's been there. Our producer's been there with us. Poor Leon. Sometimes I'm like, I'm so sorry. I wish we could do this better and get it done like much easier. But it's been really lovely getting to the end of a series, which is what we set out to do. So when we started, we were going to do a series of the podcast, see how it went, see if we enjoyed it, see if we had listeners, and then figure out what to do. And well, there will be another series, which is good news for us because I'm loving the process. But yeah, it's definitely been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has. I definitely underestimated how much technical ability I would need for podcasting. But I'm quite proud of the fact that we've managed it and that we've, problem solved. For the most part, we have problem solved all the tech issues that have come up. I mean, even, as I said, even I have got, the least technical abilities in the world. I would like to put myself forward for that contest. And I still managed to solve one of the more complicated technical issues we were having with the camera. And yeah, I was pretty proud of that. You even called me Steve Jobs.
I did call you Steve Jobs. And I don't know how you did that because it was a brand new issue. Riverside, which is the technology that we use to record the podcast, even they couldn't help. They couldn't figure out. We were joking about it at the start of this session. They basically just said, yeah, no, we're just going to take that functionality away from you. Basically, it's too hard to figure this out. So we were like, okay. And because it was such a new issue, there was no troubleshooting. It was really hard to find troubleshooting stuff online. So I genuinely don't know how you managed to figure out what was going wrong with that and get it all working again.
And
but
I've forgotten.
It's obviously a sign.
Let's just hope it doesn't happen again because I've already forgotten. So yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think there have been lots of learnings, but of course we love an experiment, don't we? And we love a learning curve. And I think what's gotten us through those challenges is the fact that it's a bit of fun. It is nice to be able to catch up every week and do the podcast, which we were doing anyway. We were already catching up because we speak reasonably frequently, but it's nice to have sort of a meaningful project for us to work on together. And it's also helping me. That's a side effect that I hadn't really anticipated. Obviously, we went into this hoping that we could help other people, hoping that we could help listeners to navigate the chaos and to get through all the chaos and to understand that this is normal, that feeling overwhelmed by life and modern life is very, very normal. But actually I hadn't anticipated that I would also find it really helpful. It's a bit like a therapy session.
Yeah, same here. I mean, there's some things that we've talked about that have been absolute game changers for me. And I mean, some of it we've shared, some of the stuff we already do and things we do with clients or things we do in our own lives. But some of it has been new as well for me. So again, it's really helped me in my life. And I think the fact, and it has to remain fun. I think the only way we're going to make this work is if it's fun for us, because I totally underestimated the amount of work that would go into creating a podcast, but also, all the stuff that goes into the background, like preparing, which isn't that hard, but I actually quite enjoy the prep work, I have to say. The tech issues blow my mind. That's the time when we start to get tech issues, that's when I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can carry on. That's the stuff that really gets me. And then also we've got the editing parts, and we've got there's so much that goes around the conversation, I think, and the prep I really enjoy as well. That's the really, really fun part for me. So I think as long as we're enjoying the process, which we are, and also we're starting to get listeners. So when we started out, we were thinking about topics that we wanted to talk about and where we think the wild chaos is every day for so many of us. But actually, as the series has progressed, we've actually heard from listeners where they think the wild chaos is or where it is for them, and we're answering questions. And that's been really cool. And hopefully, as things progress and into the next series, there'll be far more of those questions coming. And actually, on that note, if there's any topics that people would like us to cover or delve into, or if there's anyone that wants to share any insights on any of this stuff or stories, as well, get in touch. So the email address, which we've now learnt, is hello@psychologyinthewild.com, which kind of brings us nicely onto the fact that we have a question today from a real life listener.
The question is, what do I do when I feel like I'm not doing enough?
That question speaks to me as well. I feel like, did I write this in my sleep?
So, yeah, it's quite of a broad question, isn't it? But it really, really speaks to me. And I think it's, I think we all feel like that, don't we? We all feel like we could be doing more.
100% at one point or another, I think we all feel like this, or most of us do anyway. And I think this just screams of expectations to me, and two kinds of expectations. So the expectations we put on ourselves potentially, but also the expectations from society and what's going on around us as well, because that can have a huge impact in how we feel we're doing in life. And this idea of comparison as well. Like, if we feel like we're not doing enough, well, compared to what? Or, based on whose judgment? And it's something that I have to try and figure out fairly frequently, because I feel like even sometimes when I'm nailing something, say like I do something amazing at work, or I've just finished a project and it's taken a lot out of me to get that done, the chances are I probably haven't done many school pickups that week, or I probably haven't cooked many nutritious meals, or I probably haven't been thinking about the vegetables and how many of those have been consumed, or what someone else in my life needs, or the dog. I've probably been quite focused, I'd imagine, when I feel like I've done something well. And even on the flip side, like, I take most holidays off now to be with the kids, like, where I can. But then there'll be other things I'm not responding to in the work part of my life. So it's this whole, all the time, for me, it's like a self-judgment of, well, yeah, I might have done this, or maybe I haven't done anything. Maybe I haven't progressed in anything for a week, and I just feel like I'm across the board, which can happen fairly frequently, not doing what I should be. So it's definitely something that I've experienced, and I'd imagine that a lot of people today experience it.
Yeah, and if you think about, if you just like bring it right back to how we learn about the world, we make mental models to understand, because the world is so complex. We make mental models to understand, the complexity of it all. And how do we make those models? Well, it comes from all the different cues that we're seeing and learning from all around us, from, millions of different bits of information that we're getting from social media, from old-fashioned media, from the people we're watching all around us. And we make these models, and then that kind of informs the belief system that we have about what we should be doing, and how we should look, how our houses should look, how we should be parenting, what level of fitness we should be at, how we should be managing our well-being. All of these things feed into that. And it's really kind of insidious, because we start to believe that, or we start to build these belief systems that without even really knowing about it. So we build these kind of subconscious shoulds around everything. And yeah, I think that's, one of the things that I think I've probably had to do over the past few years, when life really starts to get particularly squeezy in the, when you get into your 40s and you have kids and you have, work demands and all of the rest of it, is stopping myself probably on a daily basis and going, right, where's this belief coming from? Do I really need this? Do I really need to
Mm-hmm.
do that? Do I really need to buy that? Where is that all coming from? And yeah, I think, that's part of what might help a little bit, I think. But do you find yourself doing that? Do you find yourself having to stop yourself?
If I think about social media, I'm being shown certain things. I'm being shown, hustle culture. No one's showing me videos of a calm life, which I'd quite like to see, or an enough life that, we're not striving for more, or the other holiday, or the other things, or da da da. So I've had to really train myself. I've had to reshape my relationship with social media for sure. And actually, I had a personal account on Instagram, which isn't, I've deactivated for the time being. And I'm not on Facebook and not on Twitter. There's some work. I've got work social media accounts. So I'm not saying I'm immune to this stuff by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, it's thinking that you saying do I need that? Or trying to get really clear on what good looks like for me has been quite a journey. And I've got this whole thing at the moment. I think about it all the time. I think about the phrase, play your own game, because I feel like so often we're taught to we're taught to play the game. There is a game. If you want to progress in your career, then you need to take these steps. If you want to be a great parent, you need to take these steps. If you want to get balance in your life, which, hopefully by now we've debunked that myth about balance, but these are the steps you need to take. And I feel like it's always someone else's game. It's someone else telling you how life should be, what good looks like. And all the time, I'm saying to myself in my head all the time, play your own game. Don't compete with what other people are doing, or don't try and set yourself towards a standard that isn't your standard. They may not be my values or what I want from life. But I'll be honest, it's really hard. It's really, really hard to not feel like I'm just not doing enough, or I'm not good enough at this stuff.
It's really hard, and it's so powerful. What we're seeing all day, every day, even if you're not actively engaged in social media, we still meet other people, we still talk to other people, and we hear what they're up to, and we see what they're doing, and think about what we're not doing in comparison to that. It's completely normal and natural, and it's really hard to not internalize that. And I think the other aspect of it that I have had to remind myself of a lot is that, when we talk about burnout, we're defining it really as an imbalance between the amount of demands that you have in your life and the resources that you have in your life, right? So if you've got all these demands but not enough resources to meet the demands, it means that you are at higher risk of burning out. But if you've got loads of demands and you've got loads of resources, then actually you might be able to thrive in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
What's really unhelpful, I think, at times, is when you compare yourself to somebody who has way more resources than you in all the different aspects of life. So, and I'm not just talking about financial resource. There's resources. When I kind of coach teams around this, I talk about resources as things like the ability to support one another on your team, have great collaborations, to coach one another, to have a really good coach. That's a resource. So yes, financial resources obviously hugely important. Support in terms of childcare, that's a resource. There's lots of different types of resources that we could all aspire to have, and that we all don't necessarily have. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you're comparing yourself, when I think about this question, what do I feel like what do I do when I feel like I'm not doing enough? Well, don't forget to look at the resources that you have, because if you don't have enough resources to help you to meet the demands that you're seeing, then stop putting that pressure on yourself, because you can only do so much. And don't compare yourself to somebody else who has a set of other resources, a whole different value system to you, maybe a different measure of success to you, and a different set of resources to you. So these are all the things that are at play that we forget that are going on for other people. And it's easy to compare ourselves at face value, but we forget that all those things are going on as well. So for me, it's about our good friend mindfulness. And again, as we've already discussed, we did a whole episode on mindfulness in which we discussed the fact that sometimes mindfulness can be a hard one to get comfortable with. But look, mindfulness in this context, mindfulness is simply about checking in. When you're feeling that, the rise of the overwhelm because of all the demands that you're feeling, because of the expectations that you're feeling, that you're supposed to meet all these expectations that other people have of you or that society has of you, or the worst kind, the expectations that you have on yourself because of beliefs that you've built about how things should be in life. Mindfulness can help because you're checking in and you're going, right, let me just assess, first of all, how I'm feeling. Where is this discomfort coming from? Second of all, where are all these beliefs coming from? Where are all these expectations coming from exactly? Do I really need them in my life? And that sounds simple, but when we're on the treadmill, we're trying to just get through the day of all the demands and the to-do lists and, trying to meet all the expectations. And, let's face it also, some of this is that we're trying to do all the good stuff as well. We don't want to have FOMO. We want to get in, we want to be involved in life. Oliver Burkeman talks about this in 4,000 Weeks, the existential overwhelm of feeling like we're never, ever going to, be able to do all the things you want to do. So, it's just the mindfulness thing can just help us kind of reset a little bit. So, and I'm not saying I do that all the time, but I do think that can help. Sometimes when I can feel myself kind of getting overwhelmed or feel myself getting into a little bit of a tiz about all the things that I should be doing, whether it's, I've just had a birthday for one of the kids and it's like making sure that everything is perfect for the birthday, or, making sure that everything looks right in the house. And at the moment, my house is completely upside down because we are trying to do some renovation. And, that's quite hard because it's like trying to make sure that everything is looking okay, as per my expectation of the model life. And it really isn't. So trying to like live with that is just, but you just have to remind yourself, hold on a second, where is that expectation coming from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And also, is that even my expectation? Like,
yeah,
as you were talking then, I was thinking about one of my friends that came over. So like a friend from the school. So the kids were friends and then the parents came over. And I remember the first time this mum came over, she was like, oh my God, is your house always this tidy? And I was like, absolutely not. I have been cleaning all morning. I have been like on a military operation, barking orders at everyone in my house, including the dog, about what needs to go where and tidying up and da-da-da. And it just for it to look, it didn't even look amazing. There was no stuff everywhere like there normally is. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, if you're going to ask me a question, I'll never lie. I'll never pretend that my life is always like that. And she said, can we just make a pact that when we come to each other's houses, we're not going to tidy up loads? Like, fair enough, you might want to put the washing up away. Like, okay, fine. You might want to do, there might be bits and bobs you want to do. And but can we just make a pact that when you come to mine, it's going to be a mess. And when I come here, it's going to be a mess. And we're going to be in tracksuit bottoms. We're not going to be like perfectly made up. And I was like, yes, you can come again. But actually, it's stuff like that. It's actually changed how I think in general about people coming over. Whereas I used to get myself in such a tiz about it and so worried about making a first impression and seeming like I've got things under control and it's a lovely environment. Our house is a lovely environment to be in and da-da. And I'm like, having a bit of mess on the side is not the soul of a house. Like, it shows that there's been me barking orders all morning at people and everyone's probably quite miserable if you see the house in that state.
I know.
But it's actually, having a conversation like that, and that's only with one person, it's actually changed how I am with other people, even though I haven't made that pact with anyone else. It has made me question where that belief comes from, or where that judgment comes from, or where that expectation comes from. Like, is it mine? And if it is mine, and it was mine, firstly, but I was like, do I really need that in my life? You know, if people are coming over, they're probably friends. They don't really care. As long as, you know, it's fairly, you know, it's a safe environment for the kids. And, you know, there are ice creams and obviously the obligatory bit of cucumber and and carrot you put out when children come over that no one touches. You know, as long as that starts happening and there's a bit of fun happening, like, that's what people are going to remember. That's what people care about. They're not caring whether I put my washing away.
No, and I think most people are relieved, actually, when they come over and see that you're a normal person.
Yeah.
Because it gives them permission to be the same.
Totally. And that's also why we share a bit about, like, the tech issues with this podcast and how hard, like, there's so much more work that goes into this than it appears. I know it probably doesn't appear like we put much work into this at all, but we actually do.
We do, but we don't want to. But it's important also. I think we've been quite deliberate in not presenting a perfectly formed podcast. Like, this is not perfectly curated. It is not perfectly scripted. And that's because, you know, the whole theme of this podcast is all about navigating the chaos. And, you know, we want to kind of live through that chaos with everyone as well, you know, but it is hard. Like, we're obviously also not going to come on here and have the washing up in the background looking really messy. And, you know, so there's a level, isn't it? There's a kind of a balance of how to present ourselves in everyday life in a way that's like, do you know what? It's okay to not be completely perfect and productive all the time. But also, you know, well, like, nobody wants to see a total mess either. So sometimes
we have to make sure we're actually functioning as well on this stuff, like, because it is also still professional. It is still our work as well. Exactly. So it's kind of a weird balance for us. Yeah. Okay, my advice with this bit is, like, using critical thinking. So asking yourself, firstly, is that my belief or my expectation or my judgment that is making me feel like I'm not doing enough? Or is it something that you actually don't really care about? You're just doing things because you're supposed to do them and that's what people do. So that's the first thing to think about, because if it's not really your judgment or your belief, you might think to yourself, well, why am I doing that? It's not even really that important to me. So that's kind of the first step. Second step, if it is your belief and your judgment and what you expect of yourself, ask yourself if it's useful. Do you want that belief anymore? Because so many beliefs in life we just carry through life because we've never shedded them. We've never thought about, do I still want that belief? Does it fit with my values? Is it important to me? We just might have grown up thinking that's how things are done. Or we might have taught ourselves at one point or another that's how things are done. You know, look at me with a tidy house when people come over. But is that helpful for me long term? No, it's not. It's okay when things are a bit of a mess. This is a prime opportunity now to, whilst thinking about this stuff, to shed some of those beliefs. If they're not serving you and they're making you feel less than or not enough, can we get rid of them? Can we look at things a different way? So what do you think? What are the key things that you think we should think about if we're feeling like we're not doing things good enough?
Oh, I think, as you said, critical thinking. I honestly think critical thinking is going to be one of the most important skills that we should teach our children, because there's just so much information out there and so much, you know, and marketing's not new, but we're being targeted in terms of marketing in so many different aspects of our lives now. And it's very hard to know what's infiltrating, do you know what I mean? What's going into our heads and what we're believing and we don't even realize it. So I think critical thinking and, you know, the mindfulness thing, stop and think, critical thinking, question yourself as to whether, you know, where is this belief coming from? And then I think being, you know, we've said this over and over again, in a way, I think maybe we need to do a whole episode on values and getting to know our values, but really understanding what's important to us. You know, what is important? What do I value in life? What, you know, in this situation, whether it's in my working life or at home, what do I value? As you say, what did you call it? I'm playing my own game, you know?
Yeah, play your own game.
And
when
so
you play your own game, you're defining your own rules. You're defining what the game is. You're defining your rules. You're defining the outcome, what you want to achieve, and then how you actually get there as well. And I think that's what we don't do enough of in life. I'm talking as a collective here, because it's so easy to follow patterns that have come before us or ways that we've done things before. But I'd say probably daily, I have to question myself and ask myself, like, am I playing my own game here? Is this fitting with how I want to live my life, which is very different to how other people live their lives? That's, you know, we're individuals. It should be very different.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something I'm trying to instill in my children as well. And without making them totally dysfunctional in society as well. So there's always a balance here with this.
Oh, yeah.
I say that to myself all the time. Play your own game. Stop competing with other people. And look around. Get inspiration from others. And if that helps to fuel you, amazing. If it helps you to take the next step forward, you know, say like you're on a weight loss journey, for example, and you've seen someone that's done that before you and you want to take inspiration from that. Or you're looking at your career and there's someone that's done something with their career that really inspires you and you want to take something from that, sure, like go ahead, take those cues and advice and use it as something that's inspirational. But equally remember that, exactly as you said at the start of this episode, people have different resources and people are doing things in different ways. We don't see exactly how someone else achieves something or exactly how they've done it. And with the best will in the world, you know, we can try, and we try and be as honest as we can about how our lives function, but we can't cover everything. Like, there's so many nuances in people's lives. So I think, that I have to remind myself all the time. I'm like, play your own game. Play your own game.
And I think part of playing your own game as well is making sure you're defining what winning looks like to you. What does success look like to you? And I think, you know, in lots of ways, growing up, I always think, you know, I was totally missold a life. I was totally missold life goals when I was growing up because, you know, I went to an all-girls school, was told work really hard, get to college, work really hard, and then get into the workplace. And of course, then you're in the workplace, and especially as a woman, there's going to be a massive glass ceiling. And you can't have it all as was sold to you. If you work, you know, the reality is, even if you work really hard, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll succeed in the societal box of what success looks like. So I think from a young age, it's really important to identify, what will success look like to me? Now, of course, we all have to pay for cars, the mortgages, that, you know, we have to, and we're in a cost of living crisis. And so now working an 80-hour week doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be really wealthy. You know, there was a time, I suppose, you know, back in the 80s, that, I mean, what we're talking about here is nothing new. Back in the 80s, there was hustle culture, but it was kind of different then, because I feel like if you were willing to put in that time and willing to put in the hours, and if you worked your way up, you were probably going to be able to afford a reasonably extravagant lifestyle. Now we all have to work crazy hours and crazy hard just to kind of make ends meet. Because, you know, certainly in Ireland and in the UK, there are housing crises. There's a cost of living crisis. You know, financially, we are all in quite a different boat. So we have to be real about that as well. You know, so we do all have to work hard to just get by. But I think what we're talking about here is just the glorification of all that extra work and all that extra modeling of perfection. And do you know what I mean? Like, that's and kind of glorification of being busy all the time, glorification of being, you know, as you say, getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning and doing all the different things. I mean, if that's what works for you,
100%,
definitely go
Go for
ahead
it.
and do it. But as you say, that's not going to work for everyone. So I think, getting clear on what success looks like to you. We've talked about this before, but getting clear on what success looks like to you in every day. It doesn't have to be what is success, over the next 5 years. What's success like today? And then you get to experience success every day. Once you identify what is successful. For me today, successfully getting through this podcast without major tech issues, which, we've had a few, but
we've already had a few.
Yeah. But I will be able to experience that success at the end of today. And so will you. We were being optimistic here. But do you know what I mean? Like, I think we have to rein in a little bit the expectations that we are placing on ourselves in terms of what success looks like. Think about it in a more day-to-day context. Of course, we want to set ourselves big life goals. Yes, that's good. We all know that. But sometimes it can be really unhelpful, and it can feel like they're always unattainable, and we are just going on this treadmill. And what are we trying to really achieve? So definitely getting clear on what success is, with the caveat that, of course, we all need to work in order to survive and to live. It's not saying that we can, just all go off and live in a commune, although sometimes I do actually quite like that idea.
Yeah, so do I. I quite like the idea of living in a retreat
in
the quiet for a week. Just for a while. Would be nice. Do you know something interesting that kind of relates to the topic we're talking about today? What I think is really interesting is this idea, and I'm going back to what we were talking about towards the start of this episode, of productivity. And this idea of slow productivity, which is a book that I read this year.
I remember when you were reading that. I want you to tell me more, because I have not read it, but I think it's a divisive book.
It really is, and it really shouldn't be. So this is what really surprised me about the book. So the whole the book is about, rather than this aggressive productivity, so we're trying to do more all the time, trying to achieve more, trying to get more, and a lot of what we're talking about today in terms of feeling like we're not doing enough is because we're on the other side of that. We should be doing more. Then we're looking for ways to be more productive or get more done. And there's a whole industry around that, which really grinds my gears, if I'm really honest about it. So this idea of slow productivity really spoke to me, because I thought, well, yeah, that's kind of what I want in life. Like, I want to be productive. I want to achieve things, but I also want to do it in a way that's a bit slower and a bit calmer and a bit less aggressive and a little bit less pressure on myself. And so that kind of that's what drew me to this idea. So when I started the book, I was like, actually, this is really cool. It's exactly kind of where I am in life and exactly what I want to be doing. And there's 3 key things in this book. And it's written by Cal Newport. So he wrote Deep Work. He's written loads of stuff, basically. And so I said, so the idea is that you work more seasonally. So kind of in tune with what is going on with you and your life. Like, that's a big tick for me. I work in term time now, predominantly with the kids at school. You obsess over quality. So I guess it's getting really good at something. Again, tick. Definitely want that in my life. I feel like I'm in that phase for sure. Yeah. Sold. I'm in. And you work at a slower pace. So the idea is that you are getting there, but it might take a little bit longer. Again,
okay,
totally sold.
I'm on board.
Yeah, 100%. Like, that is, it fits perfectly with my life, isn't it? Like, what she says, it doesn't always fit perfectly. But anyway, that's what I'm trying to do. Anyway, as I was in the middle of this book, I started to find myself getting more and more frustrated. So something that I've been like, yay, I found the answer. As I got halfway through, I was like, actually, I think we're missing the point here, in that lots of us have to go to work to earn money. We have to go to work to pay the mortgage, or pay the rent, pay for a car, pay for childcare, pay for bills, go on holiday if we want to. Like, we have to do this stuff, and we don't always have the option of doing this in a way that is easier to manage. So I feel like it just got me thinking of, like, right, okay, so could I have applied these principles when I was starting out in my career? Could I have said, actually, I need to take this slow? Like, think about when we were doing our masters, for example.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to do this within a year. I need to take it a bit slower. I need to I want to delve a bit deeper into this bit. And no, I had to get it done. Like, you don't have a choice. You've just got to do it. And also I feel like I'm in quite a privileged position now where I can make some choices about how I work. And it's not because they were gifted to me or it was lucky. There's been a lot of thought and preparation and sacrifice actually that has gone into making that happen. But it's still a really, really blooming privileged position to be in. I'm talking about I work term time, like, mostly. I'm not saying all the time. It doesn't work all the time.
But that was part of what success. So you worked towards that as a measure of success for you. So
yes.
Do you know what I mean? So that was like, but you had to work and grind for a long time to get to that point, to that 100%. Reward, shall we call it? Do you know?
Yeah. That's what I feel like. And I feel like it's quite this idea of slow productivity. Yes, I love the concept. I love the concept of not pressuring ourselves too much. I love all of that. But even the examples used in the book, I was like, yeah, but they can only do that. Like, there was an example of a writer that wrote the book and they were a bit old. I was like, but she couldn't write that book when she was younger because she was working on the farm. And that's what it said. Like, their family circumstances changed. The family had more money. They moved to, she wasn't like toiling every day on this farm and could write the book. Amazing. But there's, it's because circumstances changed. I'm like, we're missing the fact here. It's missing the point here that sometimes we have to put the grind in or the work in to achieve something longer term. And I think we have to keep that in mind as well. And I'm not advocating that way of working forever, and it's horses for courses, people have to do what works for them. I've got no judgment around that. But it's exactly as you were saying, like my definition of success at the moment, or one of my definitions, and one of my definitions of, my game, success, what that is being flexible with my time. But that means I'm probably not going to earn as much money because I'm going to turn down work, or I'm not going to be able to do things, and again, with the caveat, I have enough that I can do that and make that because of how things have been set up. But equally, I just feel like this whole idea of like slow product. I think the problem with slow productivity is the ideas are really good. And I'm sorry to keep slate this book, because there are some great ideas in there. The ideas are really good. I just wish they weren't tied to productivity. I just wish we could have a book about less expectations in life, or a slower life, or a calmer life, or a less competitive life. That's what I really want it to be about. I don't want it to be tied to productivity, because as soon as we start tying stuff to 100%. Productivity, things have to be done. That's why we have to be productive. We have to earn money, or we have to achieve the goal, or we have to, even you have to get the kids to school. You've got a deadline at work. We have to be productive to make these things happen. So I think as soon as we start tying this stuff to productivity, we're in trouble, really.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly right. And I think you hit the nail on the head there with the word competitive as well. I think more and more, what's obvious to me is I think we're society is sort of expecting us to be in competition with one another more rather than in collaboration with one another, whereas, because when I think about the way things have shifted, I mean, I feel like now we're working individually more. Literally, we're working at home more. I feel like organizations are set up. Like, if you think about even the way obviously things are set up in an organization in terms of our performance reviews, and everything is individualistic. Everything is you're competing with one another. You're competing within teams with other teams, and we're not incentivized to collaborate in the way that actually is healthy. Collaborating with people is actually, one of life's most meaningful things to do, and is a really good precursor. It's a precursor to well-being, and meaning, and all of the good stuff that we talk about. But yet we're not really incentivized to collaborate. It's feeling more competitive, and so that's another thing I think is, when you feel like you're not doing enough, well, again, by what measure are you not doing enough? Is it because you're feeling like you're in competition with people? And who's in that competition? Like, often I say that to myself. Often I say, do you know what? I'm not in it's a bit like saying I'm not in that race. Like I'm in my own race. I'm not in that competition. And I'm just, you can all compete with one another if you want, but I'm just going to stay out of it. um,
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, it's really hard though, isn't it? It is really, really hard to stay out of it because we all have to also just generally exist, and we want the best for ourselves. We want the best for our kids. Of course, we also want to buy nice, shiny things sometimes. That's fine. Like I think that let's also acknowledge that that's also okay to be a consumer.
Mm-hmm. And I like nice shiny things for sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm definitely in that race.
Yeah, and that's fine. Do you know what I mean? It's just, yeah, exactly. When it takes over, it sort of takes over what we're trying to achieve, and it takes over, the real value systems that we have for most of us, which is, around, you think about what people say at the end of their lives. It is always things around wanting to have been spending more time with family, having more time with friends, experiencing nature, like doing all, and so just not losing sight of that, which I know sounds obvious, but again, I certainly need a reminder. I need a reminder all the time.
This is the thing. It is obvious. And actually, I was thinking exactly as you said that. I was thinking about what people say at the end of their lives, like things they wish they'd done more of, experienced more of. And it is obvious, like, of course. But the thing is, on the treadmill of everyday life, we don't always have time to stop and think about that. So I think some of this, or a lot of what we've been talking about, is actually, first of all, noticing those feelings when we feel like we're not doing enough, figuring out what might be causing that, and stopping and reflecting on, is that useful? Is that how I really feel? Do I want that belief in my life? Can I? So some of it is obvious, but it's finding the time and also changing our thinking patterns rather than just kind of going down that route where it's like stopping ourselves and taking a step back. And actually, I think that's where the mindfulness part comes in really well as well. Because as you always describe it, it's just being present. It's just being here now. So rather than our thoughts running away with what we should be doing, and this blimmin' word should, which I use all the time.
I do
use it all the time. Again, I need to somehow stop myself doing that. But this being present is actually, hang on a sec, let me just check in with how I'm feeling now or what's going on right now. Like, check in with that and then question it. Take a moment to just question. Is that how you want to be thinking?
Yeah.
And change it if you need to.
And I think there is also an element here of self-compassion, which, let me rephrase that, because I don't know in the UK, but I think in Ireland, we'd be a bit allergic to that kind of a phrase. I hear self-compassion. No. I don't know, in the UK, maybe you might be a bit more open to it, but I think you're...
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough one. I think it's up there with mindfulness.
Yeah. So what I prefer to self-compassion is letting myself off the hook.
Yes. So that I think lots of people can get on board with.
Yes. So often I find myself in the new year setting my New Year's resolutions, and instead of setting New Year's resolutions, I'm setting my letting myself off the hook list. So these are the things that I'm going to expect less of this year on myself. I'm going to put these, let me say that again. These are the things that I will not expect of myself this year, and because I think it's and of course it's a good thing to set goals. It's important to set goals. It's important to, set yourself up for success in the new year. But also you have to be careful about all the expectations that you're putting on yourself as well. So often I find I go into a new year and I'm getting a bit overwhelmed by all the things I know I think I should be doing. And so I just say to myself, actually, do you know what? I'm just going to let myself off the hook on a few of these things. And often that enables you to achieve the really important things, because it's all down to, unfortunately, it's all down to choice and compromise in life, isn't it? If you do focus on one thing, it means you're going to have to compromise on something else. You can never, ever achieve it all, do it all, and have it all. So you have to go into a new year or, a new phase of planning and decide, okay, what am I actually going to really go gung-ho on here? What am I going to let myself off the hook on?
100%.
So
I agree. And I think, I don't know how many times I said in my professional life as a psychologist, expectations are the devil. They're
devil.
the devil. They're the antithesis of what we need in life. Like, how many times have you been away somewhere and expected it to be truly amazing, and it's probably been okay, but not truly amazing? You're like, oh, I feel so let down, or I wasn't expecting that to go like that. Whereas the times where things happen in life that we had no expectations, or expectations were really low, and then we've exceeded them, like, surprisingly, they're the times that are amazing. Think about, like, just surprising stuff that happens with the kids, or think back when I was younger, random nights out rather than planned events.
Yes,
they were always the really fun. That was always the really fun stuff. So let's apply that to ourselves. Like, if we had less expectations about ourselves, and now and again we could surprise ourselves with exceeding something or doing a better job than we ever could have imagined, then we're giving ourselves like a little boost we didn't even know we were giving. So I think expectations for me are the worst thing in my life. And I have them. Obviously, I still have them. We're humans. Our brain is predicting. It's a predicting machine. It's predicting all the time.
Yeah.
It's made like that. So if you're predicting, you're expecting. Like, we have expectations. However, I think if we can just challenge ourselves a bit to reduce those and to minimize that as much as possible, then we're taking the pressure off, and also giving ourselves a bit of room to just live life rather than how it should be done, or planning everything, or I just that's the perfect life for me, is having a bit of spontaneity and not having everything planned, not being too harsh. And the other thing I find, which I haven't talked about today, which I was also thinking about when you were talking just then, is when I've got really high expectation, I feel like I'm not doing a good job at something, whether that be relationships, parenting, work, health, fitness, any of that stuff. I'm actually really horrible to be around. I'm not a nice person if I let that spiral too far, because I get so upset with myself and so judgmental that it affects relationships. That, it puts me if you think about this emotional response to that, it makes me not feel great and not have such great interactions with people. But also, and this could just be me, by the way, but it also makes me raise my expectations for other things as well. And I can find myself getting a bit pernickety with other people and a bit like, we were supposed to do that and you didn't do that great. And it's mostly because I'm annoyed at myself that I'm not meeting expectations somewhere. And that's a really rubbish place to be. So I think, this stuff, challenging ourselves around not doing enough, not being enough. Firstly, the word enough needs to go, because like, exactly straight. According to who? According to what measure? Like, that the word enough has judgment in it. Because there's a level that someone has set, or we have set, that we need to attain. The word enough needs to go. Even things like, sometimes people would have like affirmations like, I'm enough, or I'm good enough. And I'm not against that. I think that can be positive. If it works. If it works, 100%.
Yeah. But I
would like to see the word enough go, because I'm like, enough according to who? Maybe we should just be like, I am just me. And also, I'm learning. We're all learning every day. We're trying to figure stuff out, and we need to
evolving, learning, experimenting. Yeah. That's all we can ever be. I mean,
that's all we can ever be.
And that will never be enough, because how are we ever going to get to the point of enough? What is enough?
What's the end goal?
Yeah.
Like, is the end goal? Because also, that's the other thing. I find my milestones move as well. So I'd be like, right, okay, so the kids have to have this many vegetables a week, or I go through these spates of, we have to do rainbow vegetables. Like, we just have to, I mean, can you imagine, like, obviously you're going to know the pain of this. But, they will, if I get them, rather than being like, oh my God, they just ate a green vegetable without molar. Especially the littlest one has just started eating Brussels sprouts, my favourite vegetable on the planet. So I'm very happy about that. She's also super fussy. So I was like, oh my God, she's eating a sprout. However, rather than just relishing in that for a long period of time, my head goes to, Yeah, but all the vegetables she eats are green. And we're supposed to eat lots of different colours.
Yeah.
So maybe I should try and get onto carrots. She hates carrots. Maybe I need to try and get her into carrots. Maybe I should get some purple carrots. Maybe I should get purple. And I'm like, hang on a sec. Like, maybe we should just celebrate some of the stuff we do or some of the stuff that is going well as well.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, I've had to lower my expectations big time on on the diets of my children. So how do we kind of get rid of these expectation gremlins then? So I think first of all, in answer to the question, what to do when I feel like I'm not doing enough? I mean, just take the word enough out, because you are who you are, you're doing what you're doing, and you will, whatever you're doing, make sure that it is in line with who, with your own values, with your own measure of success. And then reevaluate that and just think to yourself, actually, there's no enough about it. So, but nonetheless, it's how do we overcome this feeling of, oh God, everybody else is kind of achieving more, doing more. How do we overcome that? And so I think what we're saying is, first step is mindfulness. Just make sure that you're checking in again we say that, don't we? Mindfulness really every day, number of times a day, be here now, and just ask yourself, right, what's going on here? Where is this expectation coming from? And then critical thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thinking.
And let yourself off the hook.
Critical thinking, let yourself off the hook.
We're giving you permission to let yourself off the hook.
Yes.
If you need permission, which you probably don't, because who cares about our expectations? That's what we're saying here. But if you do need it, go for it. Let's all just let ourselves off the hook a little bit, and be a bit kinder.
And if you are in a position where, because of course the balance, the flip side of this is that there'll be lots of people listening, ourselves included sometimes, who are just in the thick of a really busy period and can't escape it right now. That's also okay too. Do you know what I mean? Like, we all have to go through those phases in life. That's, don't beat yourself up about that either. One thing I would say about it though is, if you are in a really busy phase, just question yourself around, is that being driven by competitiveness, or is it being driven by collaboration and connection with other people? So like we've already had a big conversation on another episode about the importance of connection. So, are you making sure that in that phase of really busy times, are you still connecting with people? And is the work that you're doing, are you filling that cup? Are you, getting enough collaboration, getting enough connection? Because that will kind of propel you forward in a way that, that we've discussed here, that we're doing. And the podcast is partly one of the big reasons that we're doing this, is so that we have this kind of connection space with each other and with whoever is listening to us. So look, I don't think we're going to solve this one. I think this is, no matter what, like at every point in our lives, there's things we're going to feel like we're not doing enough of. We're not exercising enough. And even if we are exercising, we're not doing, I think I sent you a reel recently of somebody, talking about how, are you lifting weights 3 times a week? Are you eating enough protein? Are you doing some cardio, but not too much cardio? Are you...
But you have to get your 10,000 steps.
Getting your 10,000 steps, but not cardio, but 10,000 steps. But are you, and it's like, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to do all this, as well as manage my house, manage my kids, manage my work? There is...
and also manage my mental health. Like I'm a human as well, trying to navigate life and trying to, that's the world that so many of us. But this is the whole point of the conversation. Like you said, I don't think we're going to solve this necessarily, but we can question it and we can ask ourselves questions. And having conversations like this, hopefully, will encourage people, including us, by the way, to question ourselves. And to maybe make some different choices where we can. Like I say, can't always. Sometimes we've got to grind. Sometimes we've got to push through. Mm-hmm. We've both been in that situation lots of times in our lives. I'm sure we've still got lots of that coming in our lives. But actually, it is up to us to question that.
Yeah. And I think that's ultimately the right thing to do with this, is just question it. Stop and question. It's the only thing. And just talk to other people about it, because the more, as you said earlier, the more you delve under the bonnet of the reality of what other people are doing and achieving and what it looks like on the face of it, the more you discover that they too are questioning these things. They too are struggling with not having enough resource to do the things that they need to do. So don't forget that what's on the face of something is very different from the reality. So
I think we should leave this here. So on that note, stay safe in the wild.
And until next week.